Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Auburn Live Show, Recruiting Edition, also known as the Shriveled Pod. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on 3. And if you're not a member of that site, you're missing out. We have had breaking news, recruiting scoop, transfer portal, basketball recruiting, you name it, we've got it. And it's a pretty damn cheap deal here. $8 a month. First week's free, hell. Give it to you for free. If you don't like it, you can cancel it anytime. No penny out your pocket. Guarantee it won't happen, though. One of the reasons is because we have some of the best minds on the beat on our team, including the two guys that are joining me today. Mr. Cole Pinkston, our recruiting analyst from Auburn Live on 3. Cole, how the hell are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Doing great. Okay.
You know, just enjoying all the fun threads from last night.
And you know, hey, Jhead, welcome, brother. Let me get to you first.
Thank you. And listen, Cole, fan is short for fanatic, and don't you ever forget it. And if you do, come to the corner message board. We got a bunch of fans. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not.
Look, I'll never, ever be upset about the passion from the fan base here, dude. It's awesome. It's always full throttle. That's my style. So
I hear you.
Hey, and I meant to do this last week, but Big, how about you to start the show to our new producer?
Yes, give him a shout for sure.
Yes, sir.
Zach, can you pop in here? Look
What's
at
up?
him. Look
Yeah,
at him.
there he is. This is the all-star, everybody.
Hey, Zach, pronounce your last name.
McKinnell.
McAnell, yeah.
McAnell.
Hey, close enough. Throughout high school football in the state of Alabama, man, you get called everything. So I'm all for it.
There you
I
go.
like
Well, if you listened to it last week, you probably know that we're experts when it comes to name pronunciations.
If you don't believe us, ask McElderry.
Yeah, that's right with McElderry. Zach, you've got a show, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Blue
Give it
Bloods.
out.
Hey, yeah, you can find us on YouTube, the Blue Bloods, all podcast streaming platforms. We cover Power 5, Group of 5, FCS, everything in between. So just give us a shout out on there, man. Player interviews, all that.
Oh, yeah. Good
All
stuff.
right. Excellent. Good. Zach, we appreciate you, man. Glad you are on board. That's why we're getting these shows out last week and today. We don't have to worry about telling the listeners we're doing this on Thursday because y'all are listening to it on Friday. Zach's getting it out. I think last week we would have had it out a lot earlier if it wasn't for me. So this is going to be coming out late Thursday night. And now listen, before I move on, I want to, in the thread that I'm going to post on the corner or message board, I want to hear people's thoughts on a potential weekly, maybe an hour or so call-in show, recruiting show with us. See how that might float. See what everybody thinks about that idea, especially during the downtime, man. There's never really a downtime in recruiting, but when there's a downtime like between now and SEC Media Days, be something to talk about. We're definitely kicking the tires on that idea. Speaking of kicking the tires, Auburn got a commitment on Wednesday from a transfer wide receiver, Dazalin Worsham. Dazalin, I remember him in high school because they used to call him Dazalin.
Is it Dazalin or Dazalin? I've heard both today.
Shit, Cole, damn, I was doing so good.
It's Dazalin.
We just call him Dad.
It's Dazalin, 100%. I think you probably heard that on Zach Blackerby's show where I think him and Charlie Five went to just butcher that name like 24/7. But it's Dazalin. You got it.
Well, I know that because Cole, I called him as a recruit Dazalin.
Oh, okay.
And then it was, of course, whatever. Real quick, too, if you've noticed, I haven't been on the corner the past couple of days, so if I haven't answered a question you've tagged me on or responded to you, I had a little health scare. Not really a scare, man. I got the stomach flu. I got the rooster tailing the other night. When I got through rooster tailing, my body wasn't getting it out fast enough, so I started projectile vomiting, ended up in the hospital, dehydrated, kidney damage. But I'm back. I'm feeling good. I got my Pedialyte and I got my water.
There you
go. If I missed anybody in the past couple of days, I apologize. I think the last thing that I put up before my first rooster tail was Julian Phillips was going to announce next week. And I think yesterday he came out and said, yes, I'm going to announce next Thursday. Go ahead and get that out of the way so we can go springboard right into recruiting Julian Phillips, the 5-star forward from South Carolina. He's got a final list, but it's going to be Auburn or Tennessee. He visited Auburn last weekend. Let's see. From what I've been told, the most recent is Auburn and Julian Phillips are having all positive conversations. I've already put in a prediction to Auburn on 3. I will say that when I made that prediction, I expected him to commit shortly after leaving his visit. I think that's where some of the confidence – I know that's where the confidence I had in that pick was coming from, and that didn't happen. I'm still not ready to change that pick or even back off of it right now. I'm giving Auburn the edge. I don't think it is – if there's a decision made, I don't know it. I'm just going off of my gut here, and I'll probably ride that pick until if and when I hear differently. So Julian Phillips going to announce next Thursday, a week from today.
Is it Thursday or Tuesday?
Shit, dude, it's the 12th, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is Thursday.
Damn, Jhead.
I know, man. I'm checking you up. First it was Cole, now it's me. Yeah.
Auburn's got one spot. We'd love it to be him, and we'll see. Rick Barnes, Bruce Pearl should be entertaining, to say the least. I'm sure we'll have a lot more intel as we get closer to the decision date, which is next Thursday. Today's Cinco de Mayo, so 12th is going to be a week from today.
That's right. That's right.
All right, kicking it back into football, which we've been hot on the portal since the deadline has come and gone. May 1st is over with. If you enter the transfer portal now, you can transfer. You just can't play this next year. So Auburn, we know, is looking for immediate impact guys at some positions. They're looking for depth at other positions. So, but I thought yesterday on Wednesday they picked up a huge addition, and Dazalin. Shit, Cole? Dazalin? Dazalin. Is there a different way I've said his name? Daz.
I had no influence on that one. That was all.
Yeah. Picked up a commitment from Daz Worsham, who is Cole. I think I read your story, and it said he has 4 years of eligibility.
He does.
That's huge.
That's to me. That's the main reason that they said, you know what, let's go ahead and take this guy right now, because he's got talent. He was an Under Armour All-American, originally committed to Alabama, all that. He was starting to make a little bit of noise. Yes, Hewitt Trustful. Starting to make a little bit of noise at Miami this spring. Coaching change, that always brings new players that are on roster that may have been buried, into the light. But, it's an interesting guy because the 4 years is everything to me when I'm looking at that one. But there is some talent there, and you can see it on tape. You can see the talent on tape. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I think he needs a little bit more time in the weight room before he's really ready to burst onto the scene, being a smaller guy. I'm just – that's another one of those evaluations that you just got to go, well, Harson's got a plan here with that, and let's see what it is.
Jhead, do you think maybe not an immediate impact guy this year, but definitely an upgrade to the wide receiver room?
100%. I mean, when you can get that kind of talent, and it's basically you're getting the same eligibility that Colby Hudson would have had, and you can put him in that room, and you can let him compete with Malcolm Johnson Jr. over at the Z. He's also got the capability of playing in the slot at the H. He brings a lot of versatility, definite speed element where you can hit the long ball to him, which is something that Harsin and this offense wants to accentuate moving forward. So whether he's a breakout player this year or not, you're taking him on potential for what he can be. And I think the sky's the limit. I mean, when I go back and I look at his high school film and you hear the whispers come out of Miami that he really, really had a great spring down there and they were going to be running a pro-style system. Well, what are we running here? We're running a pro-style system. You just hope that, that the light's going to come on for this kid, that it really is his time. And like you said, that maybe we can get another veteran receiver from the portal to kind of help with this cycle or help with this coming season. And then you have him moving forward to accentuate your depth. And you guys saw it firsthand. I saw it from afar. At times, we only had 5 or 6 wide receivers during spring. Oh, at no point should you ever have that few receivers on your roster. I mean, it's a complete and utter problem. So you need guys of his potential, of his caliber on your roster, whether it's in a reserve role or in a starting role. So you have to have layered depth. And that's what a piece like him is right now. It's layered depth until he's able to produce and get into the system, get more comfortable with everything.
Yeah, I think that was – go ahead, Cole.
Getting him, too, is almost like adding a 4th receiver to the class with Jay Farrow, Amari Kelly, and Camden Brown. because he's got the 4 years, but he's already been in a college program. He's been in practice, so he's got probably a step on those guys. And it's the same thing, though. I mean, you don't really know what Amari Kelly, Camden Brown, Jay Fair are going to be when you're bringing them in. You have a perception of what they're going to be from their film and from talking to them and getting to know them. And that's the same kind of deal here. You have the spot. The guy probably wanted to come to Auburn. That's where he's from the state of Alabama. So it's a good match to me.
I think it's a very good match, Cole, and something that we desperately needed from a depth standpoint, that
Yeah.
we needed from a talent standpoint. Now it's about getting production, and we'll see what happens there as far as that's concerned. In no way, shape, form, or fashion am I going to compare him and what he can bring to the table to Jamison Williams from Alabama. But Jamison Williams was very unproven when he got to Alabama last fall and ended up being the breakout player of the year. So all I'm saying is sometimes you don't really know whether it's this year or next year what a player of his caliber, when they're going to break out.
Did he come from Ohio State?
He did come from Ohio State.
They were trying to claim him in the draft, right?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, basically Alabama rented him for a year. We made him. Alabama rented him.
Yeah.
Same for Joe Burrow, right? They're going to say that too.
Yeah, right on. Sticking with wide receiver, now that Worsham is committed, I think we all agree that Auburn wants at least one more. I think one more. I say at least one because that leaves the door open in case a second great one comes. But definitely want one more. And some names that I know, and this might be the first time we've all discussed this together, but I think in our text last week, I was kind of in and out. But the two guys from Texas, Kevontae Dixon, Dejon Harrison were the two names that I was given to at least keep an eye on. I think Dixon is one of them has 3 years.
I believe Dixon does.
And then it's Marcus Washington from Texas.
He just went in. Did he go in before the deadline? He just publicized.
He was late being publicized, but his papers were in before the deadline.
Okay. What'd you say his first name was?
Marcus.
Marcus Washington. I think he's only got a year left. Is that
Marcus
right?
Harrison.
No, there's a Marcus Washington and there's a Dejon Harrison or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. So there's two different guys.
Yeah.
Who's the third guy you mentioned? Marvin Harrison?
No, Marcus Washington.
That's an Auburn defensive end.
Used to be, yeah.
It's the same name, Marcus Washington.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, I can pronounce that. I'll tell you, and we've talked off the record between ourselves. I've seen a couple of guys on Twitter mention Eric Pearsall from
Ricky Pearsall from Arizona State.
That's what I said. And that was a name we had followed for a while. Once he got in there, and from my latest intel says that they've had to cancel his OB, that he's not an option academically. I think that's at least what I don't have his transcripts. I don't know the story. I was just told by people who know more about it than I do that his OB was canceled. His transcripts were not lining up with the requirements needed at Auburn, and he was, for that reason, he was not an option. And even since I've heard that, some people on Twitter, Mike Farrell, have said something about a dude visiting Auburn, and if he does, then I don't know. I'm just telling you that's why I haven't mentioned him.
And that's why I've been telling everybody just to kind of, let's stand down on Pearsall here a little bit, just, level expectations some. And that wasn't my intel to share. That was yours. And wanted to make sure that you got the opportunity. You do good. Yeah, wanted to make sure that you got that out here on the podcast. But I think people need to understand, and Cole can probably speak to this more from that college coaching standpoint. Sometimes it's not about whether or not a kid made an A, a B, or a C in a class. It's about whether that's a transferable credit from one institution to another.
Yeah,
I think anybody that hears an interview with that kid knows that he's bright. It probably is not a great issue. It's just a transferable credit situation. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the unhidden monster in the transfer portal that people don't really talk about or don't understand is that everything has to be, it can't just be, hey, I love him as a wide receiver. I love him as an athlete. Those credits also have to transfer to be able to get him into school. And I think that's the feel. And I think that's the same reason why Notre Dame kind of dropped him off their board. And it's being circulated that it's really kind of a Florida-Oregon battle.
That was the next thing I was going to say. It was, hey, my people think he's going to Florida. And of course, Jhead and I were talking about this before the show. How can you get into Florida if you can't get into Auburn? And then I thought, well, shit, man, look at Desi Seals, the basketball guy from a year ago. Couldn't get into Auburn, couldn't transfer to Auburn, but he transferred to Arkansas, did he not?
Transferred to Arkansas State.
Arkansas State. Well, I thought it was Arkansas. So
Well, he was coming from Arkansas.
That's right. All right, straight down that argument.
Right. So how can you be eligible at Arkansas and then not get into Auburn? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense. You got two SEC schools, shouldn't you guys be operating?
It's the progress towards degree, the PTD,
Yeah,
the 20, 40, 60, 80, whatever it is. And I don't know if every school doesn't have the same criteria. Again, how can Pearsall be an option for Florida and not be one for Auburn? That's something I'll probably look into in the next week. I'm just curious. But that is what I've been told. So that's why we won't waste any more time on him. I have heard Florida's the team to beat. Auburn was trying to get a visit, but had to cancel it because he was not an option. The most defensive line, touched on this before my case of the Rooster Tails came in. Myron Warren, defensive lineman from Texas. Of course, we mentioned Casey Rogers several times, and then kind of knew earlier this week Auburn was going to be in his final group, but he hadn't visited, and you can read the writing on the wall on that. He had just visited Oregon, committed to Oregon. No surprise there. So Myron Warren, the defensive lineman from Texas, is transferring, and then you got two edge guys we're at least talking about publicly. And I don't know that I have anybody privately, but Obua Isabor, who visited Auburn last week, and then the FAMU stud guy, at least his statistics scream stud to me, in Isaiah Land. So there's the three defensive linemen that definitely going to be keeping an eye on. I think Warren is he told me he's going to visit Auburn. He just hasn't set a date yet. I thought it could be this weekend, and it might be, but nothing is set as far as I know. Isabor visited Land. Land is another guy Jhead and I were talking about. Might be some transcripts there, the transfer stuff with the credits and all that. That's been an issue, at least initially with him. I don't think there's been a clear we can't get him in, but there is some concern there with Isaiah Land. Now you guys know more about that than me, but that dude is a guy who could come in and provide some immediate help.
Yeah, absolutely. He's also from Grayson.
Yeah.
Which is, I think him and Owen Papo were pretty familiar where they were teammates there. So you have that aspect too. And, if you want to get close to home, that's pretty close. Auburn is. So, which most of the transfers, I'm not going to say most, but probably more than 50% of the transfer portal players are going back closer to home.
Well, and think of the success we've had, Cole. I mean, it's been predominantly with guys that are looking to get closer to home. And I think we've talked about this before, but you got to have an end. In transfer portal recruiting, you got to have an end, whether it was a previous coaching relationship, whether it's you're geographically, close to where somebody wants to be, a family member. Somehow, because this is the speed dating of recruiting, you have to have an end because it moves so quick. I mean, think about how quickly we move with Dazalin. I mean, we found out there was legitimate interest. No, never even visited. We found out there was legitimate interest this weekend. We're all
not since high school. He visited in high school.
Yeah, he visited in high school. My guess is he probably had to have a couple phone calls or maybe a Zoom call with Harsin to make sure he was a take and a culture fit. And bam, there he is in the class.
Let's go.
Wednesday. So that's how quickly these things move when you're the right fit, when the transcripts match, everything's a go.
Yeah, and you know what? That's my counter argument too for those who argue that visits are not all that important and offers. Oh, well, it's just an offer or it's just a visit. He's just enjoying a free visit. Well, no, he's building a relationship that one day could pay off. You just don't know anymore. You don't know when a guy might hit the portal. You don't know when someone that's playing for you now might leave and you need a spot. You just never know.
No,
so
it's
relationships.
Yeah, 24/7 free agency. And now, Jeffrey said this, let's give him credit for it. There used to not be a prize for coming in second. Now there's a prize because you don't know who's going to jump into the transfer portal.
So
you know what I mean?
Horseshoes, hand grenades, and recruiting in 2022.
In the transfer portal. There you go.
Yeah, okay.
And, this will add to what you was talking about. Casey Rogers, when I talked to him, he's like, Auburn's going to be in my final three. I was like, well, shit, man, have you visited there? No. Well, that was a respectful to his coach in Rock Bellantoni. There was that end. There was an end there. There was a previous relationship with his coach and I think Rock, and so that was almost tip of the cap, man. I respect you enough that I'm at least going to put you in my final three. Now I don't know if Auburn appreciates him. Either way, but that was your end.
Yeah.
So Myron Warren, defensive lineman, interior guy. I think they want one interior guy. I think they would love to have two edges if they could find them, but it might just be Obua Isabor.
Right.
Myron Warren, Isabor would be a great two ads on the defensive lineman land if you can make it happen, or if there anybody else comes to light.
And one new name on the interior DL I was tipped on today is Josh Landry from Baylor. I believe that their contact has been established there.
He was a good player there as well.
So it'll be interesting to see if he's looking to come here and work in the rotation with Marcus Harris and Kobe Wooden, as that's kind of the position that when I'm looking at him, he would rotate between that 5-tech end and that 3-tech tackle / guy that's going to play in the 4-eye. I mean, he can kind of slide across the line. I don't see him as a nose. Cole, do you?
No, I think he's a 3 and 5.
So, he gives you that. And here's the thing. When we got, that freshman from Tallahassee back, when we got him back in the fold, that kind of decreased the need a little bit in the defensive line. That was really big. But
you talking about Marquise Robinson? You
got it. So getting Marquise back was big, but Marquise didn't go through spring.
From Milton. Yeah, you're right.
Neither did, our JUCO big-time transfer, all-world player. Unfortunately, he didn't go through spring. So you don't really know how quickly they're going to progress this year when they get into fall camp. Having another veteran that you can lean on, that increases that depth and kind of mitigates, risk there to a degree, bringing in somebody that's got some Power 5 snaps underneath their belt.
Yeah.
So I see upside with either one of those guys in Myron Warren or Josh Landry. If you can get one of the two of those, I think that's probably a pretty good play.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. We've talked edge, defensive line, wide receivers. I think DB is another position they're looking to add at least one guy from. I'm thinking the safety. Is that right? It seems like all the names I've been given are safeties.
All safeties names, and the one that I've got that's the top of my board is the kid from Iowa State.
Iowa State?
Yes.
Yeah, but which one?
Craig McDonald.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I got two names for you.
Right. Craig McDonald from Iowa State seems to be topping of the board from what I can tell, or my intel that I've been getting as far as that's concerned.
Same here.
And he's a really great player. I mean, I think he had 40-plus tackles, 2 interceptions last year, was heavily in the rotation for Iowa State, and was favored to start coming into this spring. So if you can get a player of his capability and his caliber to come into the back end to pair with Zion Puckett, that sets you up really well in the back end for your 2-high set.
Yeah.
Now, this info is from Tuesday, and I've been out of it since then. But has Marvin Grant from Purdue, has he committed to USC?
I think so.
If he hasn't, but Auburn definitely likes him too.
Yeah, that was the other one. Let me check on that. I think he did actually.
In my list of transfers that I was watching, he was the alpha dog of the group. I mean, him and the other kid from Iowa State. They are both probably McDonald are both better than probably anybody else that we're looking at right now, in my opinion. From my novice eye, from what I've seen on film, those are probably your two big dogs right there. And the early word is he was looking at USC, like a lot of transfers in this cycle are.
Right.
He's not committed yet, but he may be. He may be, leaning that way. So
relatively.
I think that's the expectation. But we've talked about one defensive lineman, 1 to 2 edge, a safety, 2 wide receivers, and up until recently, I didn't know if offensive line was going to be a big play here, but we've just learned, or at least Jhead brought it to my attention, and we've since confirmed that there's at least one guy Auburn is taking a long look at. Jhead, tell me about him.
So that's Spencer Lovell. He's a guard/tackle out of Arizona State. Very physical guy. I think he's played in over 21 games, 3 starts, and he's somebody that can come in and upgrade your 2 deep right away. I mean, I think there's a little bit of concern at the left guard position. He's a guy that can plug and play there as far as that's concerned. And he also gives you the flexibility to be able to play other guys at right tackle. So if you sustain an injury or anything of that nature, either he can slide out and play right tackle, or he can step in and play guard, and you don't lose all that much productivity if he doesn't start. I would really like Cole's take. Offensive line is kind of his specialty as far as what he sees from Lovell. But I think he's definitely a guy we would take. And this falls in the vein of what Cole said before. We're not going to just take a body. We've got more than enough bodies on the offensive line. But if you can take a guy that upgrades your two deep and improves the competition in that room, you're going to grab him. And I think Lovell can do that. But let's tip it to Cole and see what he thinks.
Yeah, man, Levels. He's obviously if at this point, if they're going to go for an offensive lineman target, because they do feel pretty good about what they've got for at least this season. They're probably looking at someone that can compete for a starting job, and I think Level's that guy. I love
How many years does he have? I'm sorry. How many years?
Two.
Okay.
And I love his picture. He's got crazy eyes in his picture. You love that. I mean, legitimate, just psycho eyes in the picture. You love that in an offensive lineman. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he locked somebody in their basement. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
I wasn't going to go that far, but yeah.
It buckles the chin strap.
Yeah. So anytime you see a picture like that, no, really. You take a guy with his talent, no matter what your offensive line, looks like, because he could definitely compete for a starting job. And that's the plan. They want competition all the time. So,
go ahead, Jhead.
Similar to Pearsall. So obviously Zach Hill was the offensive coordinator there for the last 3 years at Arizona State. Zach Hill runs a very similar scheme to what Brian Harsin will be putting into play here this season, along with Eric Keesaw. So you're not losing that knowledge that you might lose coming from a different system, having to kind of adapt to new terminology, new wording, things like that. You're not going to have that, I guess, adaptation process like some other prospects would. He's going to come in a little bit more ready-made. So if you can get a guy like him, it just makes all that much more sense that he's got familiarity with your scheme.
Yeah, right.
And, I think what we haven't talked about, and I know this is more of a recruiting show more than team, but I found it interesting from an outsider when it comes. Justin's our insider on the team, but May 1st came and went without anybody else from Auburn entering. If I'm not mistaken.
Big. No, nobody else has entered. I've been cross-checking the portal, the wire, anything else I can get my hands on showing me, who's been getting in. And so that means that you had, I think, 66 guys when you finish spring actively on the roster. You've got another 9 signees that are coming in. And at this point, we have not heard that there are any academic casualties at all, which puts you at 75. You just added another transfer, so now you're up to 76 scholarship players moving into next season. So you're starting to move in the right direction, and as opposed to into the opposite direction. And I think
you still got 7, 85, so it's 9.
Right. So you still got 7 scholarships to give in this cycle, I believe, which puts us up to 83 scholarship players, I think.
So you're saying max is going to be 83 for the fall?
Probably, yeah. And you could give some scholarships to a couple walk-ons, whatever, to reward them for their hard work. But that's where you kind of want to be. If you can be in between 80 to 85 scholarships and you've got adequate depth at each position, that's kind of where you want to live. Mm-hmm. And here, look, that could even change. I know the NCAA is talking about waiving the 25-man rule and doing it immediately. That's obviously up under consideration right now for the rules committee. If they do that, you could add even more scholarships and get to your full 85 if we so choose to. I don't know that they're going to just bring anybody in, though, and you guys have said that from the beginning. It's got to be a guy they think can play in the SEC that fits their scheme. They're not just going to bring in Joe. They're not going to suit me up because I got eligibility left. They can't do anything with me. They need a capable body. And so we'll kind of see how that plays out. But right now, my numbers say 7 guys left in this period, which get us up to 83 scholarships.
And Myron Warren, I talked to him, and he's got a bunch of Conference USA type offers. UAB, Arkansas State, Southern Miss. That was as of Tuesday. Again, all my intel's from Tuesday. No more recent than that. But he was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He signed with Texas. He got a lot of talent. He's a guy you say, I think you bring him in if you can bring him in. Because if he's not playing in 2 years, he's going to be gone anyways. So what's the risk here?
Yeah.
But he's obviously talented. He's a young guy. He's coming from a Power 5 program, Power 5 system, and you need him. I think.
Yep.
I think just basing off of that alone and what the competition is right here, I like Auburn as of right now with Myron Warren. He's coming to visit. Told me that. I like Auburn with Isabor. I don't know any inside information. I just know that he left UCLA to play at a big time conference in a big time, and Cal and Duke ain't it.
No.
All right. There's 400 to 500 snaps reps left open by TD Moultrie and Romello Height. And so they're going, and those are going to go to somebody. And right now, all you've got is redshirt freshman Dylan Brooks. Right? Am I reading that wrong?
No,
you got a redshirt freshman Dylan Brooks to help take over those 400 to 500 snaps that they lost. I think that's going to be a big selling point for Isabor. I think playing in the SEC West, he gets in the best division in the country. So I think ultimately, and if he goes to Duke or Cal, God bless him, right? He should have stayed at UCLA. Why are you going to leave UCLA to go to Duke or to Cal? One's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast. What's the deal?
That's a good point.
So I will say Auburn's the team to beat. My guess, Myron Warren, Isabor. I wouldn't go any farther than that.
No, those are the two that I feel comfortable saying that, I think we can add those. I tell you one name that we didn't talk about with wide receiver recruiting that I've really got my eye on, that somebody that's transferring back to the area is going to be Matt Landers, Toledo, transfer wide receiver by way of, UGA transfer wide receiver by way of Toledo, because he was only there for one season. He's originally from South Florida, I believe, or maybe Central Florida, looking to get a little bit closer to home. I think our DPP has a prior relationship there. So there's your in as far as that's concerned.
Right.
If his academic transcript plays itself out the way it should, you're talking about a guy that had over 25 catches and 500 plus yards last season. So that gives you some added production back to the room that you're not necessarily getting with Dazalin. So that's a name that I'm watching that I think we have an in with. There are other teams that are interested. I know Miami's also interested as far as that's concerned. So we'll see kind of how that one plays out. But that's the name I'm going to watch in the wide receiver room that I think we've really got a shot at.
We're talking 76 with 66 plus 9 coming in at the end of May, and they'll all report. I think it's the last weekend of this month. All the new freshman guys that are coming in. You got plus Worsham, that's 75. Plus Worsham is 76.
Yep.
Defensive lineman Warren 77, an edge 78, wide receiver 79, a DB 80.
Yep.
And maybe an offensive lineman, maybe another maybe another edge. Maybe
exactly.
and you're maybe even taking best available if you can get some good dudes.
Sure.
So I think if you get up to 80, right? 80, 82, and then fill the rest with some walk-ons, considering what this program's been through in the last 6 months, at least numbers-wise.
Yeah.
Major accomplishment. Look, and if you're able to add the safety from Iowa State, if you're able to add Isabor, if you're able to add, a Josh Landry or a Myron Warren to your defensive line, if you're, it really is providing quality depth. These aren't guys that are just complete scrubs. You know what I mean? It's not like, we went out to the, SAE house and decided we were going to recruit a couple guys to come out there and walk on the football team. These are legitimate Power 5 football players that are coming from good football schools. Okay. I also like some of the programs these guys are coming from. I mean, if you take a guy from Baylor and you take a guy from UCLA, well, Dave Aranda and Chip Kelly are guys that value culture as much as our head coach. So you're going to be getting quality kids that are also coming through the door as well. And I think that in and of itself is something that you've got to look at, is where a kid's coming from and how successful he was in that program. Why is he leaving? Things of that nature. But you don't really question the kid's character. And I think that's something that you got to make sure that you're evaluating as well.
This may be difficult to believe also, that there are a lot of players out there that are looking at certain parts of Auburn's roster, the part that they would fit in, and go, I don't know if that's the best place for me to go if I'm looking for playing time. You go, and that kind of makes you feel like, okay, if another player looks at it and goes, those guys are pretty good, I don't think I can get in there. Maybe you have a pretty good roster anyway. Not to mention, you don't really want those guys.
No.
That don't think they can compete. And certainly Auburn staff doesn't go for those kind of guys. They never have, never when they were at Boise, never when they were at the other places they were. and they're not going to do it here. So that's not a loss to them when a guy goes, I don't think I'm going to get the playing time I want there. Not a loss.
Because they know that the only way, part of establishing a championship culture is establishing competition at each position. And if you have guys that only are going to go because they think that they're the best player at that position, and they're worried about their stats and their playing time, but they're not going to be bought into your program anyway.
Correct.
So,
that's what the massive exodus was that just happened of whatever 20 guys that hit the portal. They didn't want to stay and compete, or they didn't like the way things were going.
We're back in the teens now, Cole. We're back to 19. We got two guys back. Yeah, we're back in the teens now.
Well, those guys, right? That's what you're trying to avoid adding back to the team.
Agreed. You want guys that want to fight for a spot, that want to compete each and every down.
Yeah.
You got it 100%, my man.
Yeah.
Before we wrap this one up, because I got to go. We are it's 2:38. Yeah, we got to go. Real quick, Cole, I saw Carmelo English came out. He's coming out. He came out with that he's coming out with a commitment date. Were you surprised by that?
A little.
Are you backing off your Auburn?
It depends. It depends if he's going to release a commitment date, right? So if it's a couple
December
months,
15th.
Yeah, if it's a while away, then not surprised. Right. If it's soon, then for me personally, I think that's probably good for Auburn.
I do too.
So yeah,
I do too. I think if it's in the next month,
I think that's good for Auburn.
I think if it comes out with September 21st, that's Ray Ray's birthday or whatever. Then whatever.
Do it for the kids, baby.
But if it's sometime soon, then I'm with you. I think Auburn's the team to beat right now. And if he's going to make a decision based off his feelings right now, I think Auburn is in a very good spot.
Complete agreement.
Yep.
Fellas, what about some how-batchies this week? I got a few, man. I was out of commission a little bit, but I managed to get a couple. Does anybody else have any before I get started?
I got one, and then I got a generic one. So
okay.
I'm going to start with two at Rejects who really kind of provided me some intel with regard to Dazalin, in addition to some other people. But at Rejects, big how about you to you. Thank you for the information that you gave me there to kind of get me started. And
he's also a poster.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic
poster. Glad he's here on the site. In addition, a big how about you to everybody that said, hey, Jhead, it sounded like you broadcasted from Mars last week on the podcast. I took your advice. I got a new computer. The microphone works this week. So how about you to everybody that made those comments on YouTube and on the board? I heard you.
There you go. I got one.
All right, what you got, Cole?
Mine is Barn Boy 3. The reason I went and played a little softball the other night, had on my Auburn Live shirt. One of the guys, I just got picked up by a friend that played, right? One of the guys on the team goes, man, I love that shirt. I'm a big Auburn Live guy. I said, really? Yeah. I said, for real? He goes, yeah, I love Auburn Live. He said, that's my place. He said, I used to be on Rivals, but I'm an Auburn Live guy. I said, well, we appreciate it. He goes, what do you mean we? I said, I work for them. He goes, who are you? I said, Cole Pinkston. He goes, oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I said, yeah, that's the first time that'll ever happen. So I appreciate it.
You should have signed his titty.
There you go.
Barn Boy 3. Is that right?
Yeah, Barn Boy 3.
All
that's
right,
it.
Barn Boy 3. We appreciate you, man. I've got a couple myself. Legendary poster Harvey Specter, man. Sometimes you look over some of these big dogs and you don't give them a little tip to the cap, so I'm gonna get Harvey in there, man. And some new guys, man. Bar Schools, new poster, and same with at Bees5, BEEZ5, at Toward the SEC legend, at Tex TX205, and at Zuni, and I'm, man, I don't know if this at Metaphor. Have you outbatched him lately, Jhead?
Never, and probably won't. But
okay, hold on. Here's mine.
I thought
he had like a 2-hour span that he was really good.
Oh, I know. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, he was really good. I appreciated it so much that I wrote it down. I said, "How about you to Metaphor out there?" I did have a couple of Dingleberry of the Week nominees. And they came to me via DM on the site. So we had a Dingleberry of the Week nominee, Lover of Pearl.
Oh,
He's
he's
a great poster. I don't know if he set somebody
Well,
off.
okay, I can explain that, Jeffrey.
Okay.
He hijacked a couple threads, and they were football threads, and wanted to make them about basketball. So that's a good way to do that.
I hear you, LOP. LOP, that's all right. I'll allow it. But you did get a nominee, so you should feel proud. Oh man. And another two other Dingleberry of the Weeks at Kimasabi, who's I think he's a perennial Dingleberry of the Week nominee, as is Auburn Legacy.
Ooh,
I think both of them are.
Yeah.
Very.
Those are fair.
I wrote them down. I thought LOP got a bad rap there. I knew he was a good poster.
I like LOP. I get why he got the nomination, though. I will say that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair. Hey, guys, again, don't forget, go to the corner on Auburn Live on 3 on this this thread when we post it this afternoon. Let us know what you think about possible a weekly call-in show with us. Ask some recruiting questions, maybe get some things answered that we sometimes forget about on here. Be more specific. Let us know what you think about that. Again, if you're not a member of the site, please do so. $8 a month, 1 free week. And a lot of good stuff, man. Even through the downtimes, we've got a lot of good stuff. Basketball recruiting is going to continue at least through the next week. Then football recruiting, transfer portal never stops. And neither does all our good intel, man. So check us out at Auburn Live on 3 for Jhead, for Cole Pinkston, for Zach McAnell. I'm Jeffrey Lee, man. Y'all have a good week. Stay out of the left lane unless you're passing, and then get the hell back over in the right. See you.